Today, I'm walking you through how I would build up an ad account for a pet supply e-commerce brand that is averaging around $20,000 to $30,000 in monthly sales. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to go with a general rule of thumb of taking 1/4 of your overall revenue and reinvest it into paid marketing if you want to really prioritize growth for your brand. So therefore, if we really want to clarify it, I'm going to walk you through how I would set up in a Facebook ad account for a pet supply brand that spends on average around $5,000 to $7,000 per month on Facebook ads. So we're going to talk about what are the campaigns that I'm going to create, how I distribute this budget, and obviously most importantly, what creatives I would be using. So without any further ado, let's hop straight into it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who have not really been around in the last couple of videos, my name is Victor and I am the founder of a boutique Facebook marketing agency called Victory Media. Essentially, what I do on a daily basis is just helping e-commerce brands to scale their revenues with the help of Facebook ads. And as I said in today's video, I'm going to walk you through how I would set up step by step a Facebook ad account for a pet supply brand that is netting around $20,000 to $30,000 per month in revenue and wants to spend around $5,000 to $7,000 per month on Facebook ads. So, however, before we even think about what Facebook ad campaigns to set up or how much budget we should allocate where, we first need to figure out our unit economics as well as our conversion heuristics. That is error number one that I see most, new advertisers or young brands commit when they start off with Facebook advertising. They don't know their numbers. They just start out launching their first couple of ads and they just want to, see, okay, how many purchases are trickling in? Is it actually, kind of viable for us or not? However, that is unfortunately not really the way how Facebook ads work. You have to start with the end in mind and work backwards. So, you need to understand what are your unit economics? What is your revenue per visitor, right? How much can you pay for a click? And this is the first thing that we're going to do in this video as well. So having this in mind, this pet supply brand has been around for almost a year. So on average, they get between 30 to 35,000 visitors per month. They average a conversion rate of around 1.5%, which nets them between 450 to 525 orders per month. Additionally to that, their average order value is $60. And for the sake of this video and just the simplicity of this setup, we will disregard customer lifetime value and we'll just kind of, take a one-time purchase as a given. So we're having those three metrics: monthly visitors, conversion rate, and average order value. And this already brings us a lot closer to our actual target. However, apart from those, really general conversion heuristics, you also want to make sure to understand your break-even and profit targets and how much you can actually pay to acquire a customer. So for this, let's actually hop into my little spreadsheet that you can, by the way, also find right below this video. Just click the first link in the description. You can download it completely for free, but let's hop into my computer right now and talk about how you can break down your costs and really figure out not only how much you can spend to acquire a customer profitably, but also set your profit targets within Google Sheets. And as I said, this is a spreadsheet that you can download right below this video. And essentially it has three tabs: a cost breakdown that we're going to talk about first, a profit analysis, and an ad set calculator that we're going to disregard just for now. However, either way, we've already mentioned that our average order value is $60. I've calculated with a just general cost of goods sold of 30%, which averages out at around $18, right? Our credit card fees for Stripe, PayPal, etc. will be just around $1.80, right? 3%. Our shipping costs, I've just attributed around $2 for that, and fulfillment cost per unit is $1, which leaves us with a total cost of product to fulfill of $22.80, right? So our contribution margin, or like kind of the percentage of this average order value that we have to pay just to get the product shipped out to the customer is $22.80, or 38% of the average order value. So our fuel cost, meaning the money that we can spend to acquire a customer profitably, it doesn't matter whether it's through Facebook ads, Google ads, TikTok, influencer marketing, whatsoever, is $37.20, right? If we kind of break it down as a ROAS, then we are looking at a 1.61 ROAS. Honestly, some people that are not necessarily too deep in the weeds when it comes to e-commerce brands, think, okay, wow, that is actually such a cheap product. But honestly, those are usually the numbers that we are working with, right? If your break-even ROAS is somewhere above 1.8, honestly, I'm going to tell you right now already, Facebook ads will not really be, your game, right? You first need to figure out your business model. You first need to figure out your contribution margin before you can even think about getting into Facebook ads, right? So, however, that is our break-even ROAS right now for this pet supply brand. So, I have allocated or, kind of assigned a target margin of 10%. So we want to have with each sale that we're making a 10% target margin, profit margin. And then we are being left, with the target ROAS of 1.92, right? Which gives us a target CPA of $31.20. So with that being said, those are our general numbers. One thing that you do have to keep in your mind, right? That due to iOS 14.5, a lot of those things, will look different within your ad account. And this requires a completely different video. However, just knowing out those targets and knowing that, on a really broader scale, you need to be getting this, return on your investment, then you're already, like 5 or 10 steps closer to a successful and profitable ad account than your competition. So now let's really quickly hop into the second tab, the profit analysis, and there you can literally break it down by spend level per month, right? At like $1,000, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000, and essentially you have your ROAS target right here. Usually I'm using that for for clients. Therefore, here we have a tab of agency fees. You can just go ahead and feel free to delete that either way, and then you're being left with your net profit, your kind of transactions, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. So with that being said, right, having this already brings you a lot closer to properly understanding your targets. One thing that you do need to know as well, in my opinion, especially considering that, conversion attribution is pretty much completely flawed nowadays with Facebook, especially when you're starting just from scratch, because you do not really have any relative metrics or relative targets. So if you're starting completely from scratch, my advice would also be to figure out your revenue per visitor. So right now for this, for this case, the revenue per visitor would actually be 90 pennies. So you want to understand that how much you can pay per click in order to make your visitors spend more, right? So, and you can then either obviously drive up your revenue per visitor and by increasing your average order value or actually increasing your conversion rate, or you want to keep your cost per click as low as possible to actually make your revenue per visitor worth it, right? Honestly, not gonna lie, 90 pennies is going to be a hard number to crack. Essentially, you need to be around 60 pennies cost per click on Facebook in order to make this thing work. However, this is definitely something that you should keep in your mind as well. That's a pretty easy, calculation. You just go ahead and actually take, 100 by 100 persons by your conversion rate, which we're going to see further down the line is 1.5 for this scenario. For this example, then you multiply it by your average order value and then divide it by 100 again, and then you come out at, for this case, as I said, 90 pennies. So with that being said, this is pretty much the cost breakdown that I want you to go through, and you can find that right below in the description. So now we know our numbers, and as I've already mentioned right now in the spreadsheet, right, that is the first step into the right direction and into the direction of a profitable and successful ad account. We have now figured out how much we can pay per click, how much a customer is worth to us, and how much we need to pay in order to fulfill and get our product shipped out to our customer. And therefore, we also know how much we can actually afford to pay to acquire a customer and get a new customer on, and also set our targets properly. So, that is definitely already a thumbs up, because you're definitely already one step ahead of your competition. However, now back to your actual ad spend. So in total, you have around, or like I've now said, that this pet supply brand has around $6,000 per month in advertising budget at hand. Just for the record, this is a really small advertising budget for Facebook ads, especially nowadays in 2022. So before we talk about the $6,000 per month, let's actually break it down, right? Again, starting with the end in mind and then breaking it down and trying to figure it out for smaller goals, right? So $6,000 per month equal around $200 per day in advertising spend. So taking our average order value of $60 and our target CPA that we have figured out within the spreadsheet of $32, right? And pairing that with our monthly target ad spend of $6,000, the maximum conversions that we can get is 43 per week, right? And this is even when we are hitting our targets immediately, right? We do not really have to test around whatsoever. And we're also actually, tracking also all the conversions, which is a rare case in, days post iOS 14.5. So considering that our average order value is $60, and as we figured out previously, our target cost per acquisition is $32, right? And pairing that with our $6,000 per month target ad spend, the maximum target conversions that we can get per week is 43. And our main goal when it comes to running Facebook ads always will be to exit the learning phase. The learning phase is exited when Facebook can attribute more than 50 conversions per week to one ad set, right? Given our numbers that we've just talked about, this is pretty much impossible, right? We are getting 43 conversions per week if we're immediately hitting our target, target CPA, as well as if you're tracking all of our conversions, which is honestly post iOS 14.5, a really, really rare scenario. Also, completely disregarding just the cold hard facts, right? When it comes to running prospecting ads and trying to go out for cold audiences, you just simply need to do a lot more testing, right? Testing not necessarily only of audiences, but first and foremost of creatives, right? And this is actually something that we have not even talked about, right? The metrics that we've talked about are considering, that we only have one ad set and it is immediately performing on target performance. And even then, we are not necessarily exiting the learning phase. So all these points pretty much lead me to the conclusion that I don't really want to be cold, prospecting towards cold audiences with this budget and this average order value and those target metrics, right? And my conclusion therefore is to just go after warm audiences and, prospects that have already been in touch with my brand or with, the pet supply brand that we're talking about right now, that have either visited our website or been in touch with our brand and paid social profiles. So as I said, right, considering that we already have some more existing traffic and people that have already been engaging with our brand on other platforms, I would first narrow down on those remarketing audiences and really squeeze out our inefficiencies right there to start off with a profitable customer acquisition instead of going after those cold audiences. I would go ahead and, really attribute and allocate 100% of our $6,000 per month just to warmer audiences, right? I know that a lot of media buyers out there say that, kind of the efficiency or, the targeting accuracy of remarketing audiences has been diminished due to iOS 14.5. And I would definitely agree with that. However, it is still, a better option than going for cold audiences, right? I would rely upon my remarketing and warm audiences to do my, creative testing, because odds are those people are more likely to convert with you, and therefore, you just have to pay a lot less money to get more conversions, right? And therefore be more statistically significant, as well as, more likely to just generally start off with a profitable customer acquisition. As soon as you then have, squeezed out your inefficiencies and you have actually, a really profitable customer acquisition and things are going great for you on the 6K budget, right? Then, eventually there comes the moment where you will obviously want to increase that budget. And then for me, that would be the moment to, kind of switch over to cold audiences. But this is something that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So just to really clarify and hone in this point, because I really want you guys to understand that, with the numbers that we've had at hand, and that we have just figured out, with the help of the spreadsheet, our average order value, our general conversion heuristics, we do not only have a lot more risk at hand if we're going for cold audiences, although this is kind of the buzzword, right? Growth hacking, new customer acquisition whatsoever, right? When we are really going that route, we do not only have more risk at hand, but it is really more likely that, we are generally, kicking it off with an unprofitable customer acquisition, which, from my experience, usually then ends up with the brand just stopping their advertising efforts, which is obviously something that you want to avoid. Having that said, now let's actually hop into the nitty-gritty stuff, right? With those $6,000, we have now already established, okay, like our target cost per purchase, our, how much we can pay for a click, as well as, that we want to allocate all those $200 per day, every day to remarketing audiences, right? those remarketing audiences can be small, big, whatsoever. The only thing that I want to hone in is that you are actually staying within a warmer audience pool and you're not trying to go for like a 10 million, interest audience right there. So having that said, again, you want to then create 3 campaigns. Right now, the 3 campaigns that I would advise you to create and that I would create for that pet supply brand that is averaging around $20,000 to $30,000 per month is I would first create a general remarketing campaign. Second, I would create an audience sandbox campaign, a campaign that is dedicated to, audience testing. And I will, go into more detail in regards to that in just a minute. And last but not least, the DPA remarketing campaign that is running on a low budget, that is retargeting all the people that have viewed our products. Now, without any further ado, let's hop straight into the ad account right now, build the campaigns together, and then as soon as they're finished, I'll go over them step by step for you to properly understand why we're building them out like this and how you should build out your remarketing setup. So here we are back within my computer, and as you can see, I've already created the 3 campaigns. You should have seen a time lapse by now of me creating a couple of those. There are a bunch of arrows. I haven't published none of them, and I won't. Those are all drafts, but it will get the job done. So without any further ado, let's start off right with the audience sandbox, because this is the campaign that I would launch first for this pet supply brand, just to really make sure to have a little bit better of an overview of which remarketing window works best, right? So let's hop straight into that audience campaign. Okay, so those are the 5 ad sets that I would launch and essentially the audience test that I would launch, right? I would not test different interest audiences or lookalike audiences against each other rather than different remarketing windows. The reason for this is because, the more far away, the engagement time with your brand has been, the less likely this prospect is to actually recognize your brand, and the colder this particular audience is. However, odds are, right, if you are running on a 6-day remarketing window, right, like this, your audience size will be particularly small and you will be capped in size, or you will really quickly run out of your ad creatives, and you will run a lot more into ad creative fatigue whatsoever. So there are obviously kind of this never-ending dilemma of, okay, scale versus qualification, or versus kind of quality of traffic or quality of audience. So therefore I would test those 5 audiences against each other with the same 4 ad creatives that we're going to talk about in just a minute, to just see, okay, like, how well is my 30 days engagement performing against my 6-day engagement? Odds are 6 days engagement, that is my lag time. This is where 90% of my traffic checks out in this given example within 6 days after their first visit on my website. So odds are 6 days engagement, and the smaller your marketing window will be, the higher the returns will be. However, especially considering that you're then probably going for like just a couple of thousand people in impressions, CPMs will be pretty high in the 6 days engagement compared to the 30 days engagement. So then you can see, okay, maybe the returns slightly higher on a 6-day engagement, and really kind of just see, okay, how is and compare your frequency with your cost per purchase right there, or cost per click, or CTR. Honestly, those are kind of more of the heuristics that you should be looking at, CTR and cost per click, rather than conversions, because conversions will not necessarily be a statistically significant metric right here, because as you can see, we will run that on a $50 daily budget for 3 days. After 72 hours, we will by default deactivate all of those ad sets, and then this whole test will have cost us $750, right? And it will run for 3 days, and after those 3 days, we'll then make a decision which remarketing window we want to focus on going into the future, and going into this month, for us to then have the biggest scale at the most efficiency, right? So that is the first thing that I would launch. And as I said, within each of those ad sets, I would have 4 same ad creatives that we're going to talk about in just a second, okay? So afterwards, there comes the dynamic product remarketing campaign. 30 days website visitors, I like to just keep it like that by default. For those of you who don't know what a dynamic product remarketing campaign is, essentially it's nothing more, nothing less than when somebody like views your product on your website and the Facebook pixel gets it, they will just automatically deliver an ad based on your product feed, product catalog to them with just a white background or like kind of the product picture that you have also on your Shopify catalog, right? So it's really a personalized ad experience right there. And I always like to just have it as on a low burner. When it comes to like things like apparel and fashion, then sometimes those campaigns can really skyrocket in performance, and then I really like to scale them as well. But by default, I usually first go with a general remarketing campaign where I still have the ability to just change the creative as I wish to. So with that being said, this is the only ad set that I have in the general remarketing campaign, and that is given the results that we have kind of sourced from our audience sandbox test, so from our marketing window test in the beginning, right? So this would probably then be launched in the end of the first week of running ads with that account. And I have just taken, for the sake of this scenario, that the 10 days engagement right here has had the best scale at the most efficiency. So therefore I've just taken that one and went with that one. And this one will have the exact same ad creative just by default in the beginning than within our tests, right? As I said, stay tuned. I'll talk about those in just a minute from now. But this is pretty much it. I will be running that as a CPO campaign at 150 euros budget, and our dynamic product remarketing campaign will be running at a 50 euros budget or $50 budget, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that is pretty much it, right? Those campaigns by in itself will be around $6,000, so we'll probably end up spending a little bit more than $6,000 for that month. I'm guessing around like 6,300 whatsoever, but this is pretty much what we are looking at. So this is how our setup looks like, and now we're going to talk about the ad creative. So we've discussed our setup and our campaign setup from a media buying standpoint. However, as every good media buyer knows nowadays, the most important ad element and the most important factor to the performance of your campaign and the success of your campaign is your ad creative. So what are the ad creatives that you should be using when it comes to that budget and this remarketing setup? And what are the creative formats? What is the messaging angle? So let's hop straight into that juicy stuff. First of all, I want to emphasize that if you already had been running some Facebook ads, like in the past, or you already have been running some Facebook ads at an even lower budget, right? And you have already identified a couple of creatives that have been working tremendously well, then definitely make sure to implement those. And those, 4 ad creatives that I'm going to reveal right now, those are just kind of essentially suggestions that I'm having, right? Things that I see work pretty well, usually on a remarketing basis, and that we kind of have prioritized within our backlog when it comes to onboarding a new client. However, ultimately every ad account is different, every target audience is different, so you want to really make sure that you have your ad creatives personalized to your own target audience. And the most important step there is to properly and genuinely know your target audience. So what are the objections, right? What might be holding somebody back to actually make the purchase with you? Is it is it actually, the size? Is it, kind of the shipping terms, right? If you're in fashion and apparel brand, then it's definitely something with, okay, what is the return policy and the refund policy, right? Is it maybe customer reviews and social proof that is holding people back, right? Those are things that you want to figure out and then proactively overcome within your marketing ads. So we want to have those questions answered, but let's hop into my computer straight again for you to see what are the ad creatives that I would be launching within those remarketing setups. So here we are back within my computer, and as I've already mentioned, we're going to talk about the 4 creatives that I would probably implement within this general remarketing campaign that we've just talked about. And we are also going to cover why I would probably implement those particular creatives. However, quick disclaimer before we hop into that, obviously every account is different, and obviously every product is different, every business is different. So, if you have a completely different set of problems at your hand, right, then you obviously want to make sure that you're solving those business problems with creatives, right? However, those are the 4 suggestions that I see, across the board perform particularly well, and I'm going to talk about why I think this is the case. So the first thing that I would probably implement in the first creative is the press hit image, right? A press hit image, as you can see right here, features the product, with a press hit and mention that, this particular brand had within this magazine, within this show whatsoever, right? Here we have Vegamore that has been mentioned within Allure, and it is just generally a great way to add some more social proof and trust to your brand, right? Use press mentions and have them as a leverage within your paid social, because as I said, it adds more kind of trust to your brand and more social proof, as well as usually they have some cool headlines that you can use, right? Like here it gives my, let's just say, the sexy fluttery look that I love so much, right? That is an exact creative that I would use as well and test and see how this works and performs within my marketing campaign, right? Second one is a comparison creative, right? This is especially for the products out there that have a direct competitor out there, and where people are already using a different type of product, right? That goes for things like like consumables. This goes for things like gadget. This as well goes for things like supplements, right? For those kind of things, it really helps if you have some kind of comparison creative. What do you want to do with that comparison creative? Essentially, you want to showcase how you are better than the product your target audience is currently using, right? If possible, really bring it down to the cold hard facts. This is what essentially Super Coffee is doing right now. They know that the majority of their target audience is usually going to Starbucks to get their ready-to-go coffee, right? With Super Coffee, however, they can actually avoid that, absolute sugar bump, and they've literally called them out by saying, "Oh my God, never going to Starbucks again," right? That is a great comparison creative that I always like to use and that I always like to really aim for when it comes to briefing my creative team. So the last kind of the next one is the feature ad creative, right? Here you can see a great ad from Athletic Greens where they really talk about the different features that they have to their supplement, right? Like no GMOs, no harm chemicals, right? No animal products, no artificial colors, right? What are your product's USPs and what makes your product or brand better than anybody else's out there? This is essentially what you have to ask, and then point that out in a minimalistic fashion. That is maybe also personal preference. I really like it when it's like when you have a small kind of image there that kind of describes a particular feature, but it really goes ahead and within a minimalistic fashion you go ahead and point out why your product is better and the different features that come along with your product. And the last but not least, you have your product demo that I also really like to have within my remarketing ad creative. I also really like to have some kind of more like long form UGC content within my UGC video within my ad creative, within my remarketing campaigns. The reason for that is if this is usually, in my opinion at least, really the point in your customer's consumer journey where they go ahead and actually want to know more about the product. They want to know more about how it is being applied. What are the experiences that other customers had, right? There's actually the moment where it's most likely that people, if their attention is grabbed correctly in the beginning, will stay with your video for 30 seconds, right? 40 seconds, and really want to know what is the genuine experience that somebody had with your product, right? So that is the reason why I always like to include a product demo within my general marketing creative, preferably from somebody that is really talking about their particular experience. And in the best case scenario, with that creative, you're proactively also overcoming objections, right? That is a great way to use and kind of implement UGC videos, is where then the particular person talks about the particular objections that they've had before purchasing with you, how their experience was, right? Why they were so surprised, why they were so amused with the product, and why they're going to kind of come back and buy with you. It also gives you more of the social proof, right? This is a great ad from Volo Beauty, and this is essentially it, right? Those are the 4 creatives that I would probably start off with: 2 images, 2 ad videos. What I would maybe use here in the feature ad creative instead of a video would be a carousel, just to have a little bit more of creative format diversity within my ad account, so Facebook can really pick their winners. However, here having 2 images as well as 2 videos definitely gets the job done, and those are probably things that I would start out with. And as soon as I then kind of see something, performing a little bit better, I would probably double down on that. So with that being said, now let's get back to. So those are the 4 creatives, and those, would be the creatives that I would have in my initial setup. From there, I would then just take it on a, weekly basis, let them literally run for 7 days, to not really touch the campaigns whatsoever, and then reassess and go from there. Usually, you see a couple of, outperformers, and then I would just go ahead, for example, with the, press image, right? If this is, for example, extremely outperforming all your other ads, right? Then I would just go ahead and literally turn off the two worst performers and cycle in 2 new iterations of your press image, right? With a different press mention, right? With a different product image, right? With a different ad copy. Things like that, and you just want to take it from there. If this is, the scenario that you are literally, not really seeing any performance within your ad creative, what I would then go ahead and do is make 2 net new ad creatives, really, having a completely different approach, a different angle, right, to your ad creatives, and cycle them in, right? And I would do that, as I said, on a weekly basis until I see performance, kind of really scale up. Now, we've gone pretty far by now, right? We've talked about the metrics, and we've established our targets from our cost per purchase, and we also know how much we can spend to break even on our customer acquisition, right? So additionally, based on those numbers, we've put together a strategy that stays away from, cold prospecting, and first aims to increase our profitability and get more sales through our warm audiences. So we've also talked about how to set those campaigns up and which creatives you should have within each ad campaign, right? And we've come up really far by now, right? You should have a pretty good understanding and overview what you should be doing when it comes to running an ad account for an e-commerce brand at a size like that right now. However, to wrap this video up, I briefly wanted to talk about what you should be doing when it actually comes to scaling those marketing efforts, right? And first of all, the best advice that I can give you right there is to check out my channel. I'm either way always talking about, how to grow your e-commerce profitably to the next level, but I've actually also recorded and published a video exactly about this topic, how to scale your Facebook ads, and I will pop it somewhere around here. So make sure to check this out right after that video. So the first step is the most obvious one, right? When your marketing pays off, you obviously want to go ahead and increase the budget for the campaigns or ad sets that are working for you, right? You want to increase that budget gradually. I'm talking about that within my other video on how to scale your ad campaigns. However, additionally to that, I also want to share with you the next campaign that I would publish for that particular pad supply brand, and for any brand essentially that wants to reach the next level with their paid marketing efforts. And that is also when you want to step up your paid marketing budget from around $6,000 that we've talked about up until now to around $10,000 to $15,000 per month. And the campaign that you want to launch by then is the campaign that I like to call Creative Sandbox. So for the accounts that we are managing here at Victory Media, the Creative Sandbox is a campaign that we are usually launching by default for our clients, right? It is a really encapsulated environment where we can go ahead, test different ad concepts, different ad angles whatsoever, and really make sure that this does not really affect any of our prospecting and optimization efforts, because it is, as we call it, a sandbox where we can just play around. So given this Creative Sandbox, I would then go ahead and actually lay out a testing roadmap for the next 4 weeks, given this additional testing budget of around $4,000 per month, right? With those $4,000, I would roughly say that with the average order value we've been talking about of $60, you can launch between 4 to 6 tests, right? This is a really good kind of point to be at, and I would deploy that testing roadmap, and then at the end of this testing roadmap, compare the relative performance against each other, as well as compare it against the hypothesis that I've been setting for those tests. By the end of this roadmap, you will have a really proper understanding of what works when it comes to cold audiences, because this is actually the first kind of campaign that you then want to launch that goes after cold audiences, and this will give you just generally a lot more insight of what works and what messaging angles work when it comes to converting your target audience, and this will help you massively when it comes to your scaling efforts further down the line. So if you want to know more about how to set up that creative sandbox, then make sure to check out my channel. I have a complete video talking about how we test our ad creatives here within my agency. And if you want to know more about, how to lay out a testing roadmap and how to make sure that you have your hypothesis and your overview set up correctly, then make sure to drop a comment and I'll be more than happy to record another video of that. This, however, has been pretty much it, right? You should by now have a really proper and good understanding of what you should be doing when it comes to, really, first of all, obviously, how much you should be spending when you're running at this level of like making between $200,000 to $400,000 per month, per year in revenue as an e-commerce brand, right? How you should be spending it, how I would set up my remarketing setup, which creatives I would be spending, what numbers you need to know in order to be properly set up. Those are all the things that I would, set up like this, right, within a client's ad account or within our own ad account. And I hope that you by now have a proper understanding of what you should be doing if you're in the same scenario. Let me know in the comments in case you like this video. I think this is a really fun series and can really be helpful for a lot of not only e-commerce brands but also media buyers out there. So let me know in the comments if you thought this was helpful and if we want to make this a series. If this turns out to be a series, then make sure to also just drop below the account size that you would like to have covered, right? Is it more of a higher account size, how I would build out an account that spends $100,000 per month? Or, do you want to know something with a higher average order value or lower average order value? Just let me know down below in the comments and I'll be more than happy to make this the best and most fun series on YouTube. Either way, every Thursday on this channel there comes a new video, and if you are interested in the most recent trends and tricks for Facebook ads, and if you want to know how to grow your e-commerce brand profitably to the next level, then make sure to hit the subscribe button right below this video to stay up to date with all the new videos. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you can implement that information within your ad account, and I guess I'll see you next Thursday. Keep growing. Thank you so much for watching the video to this point. I know that if you have come this far, that you form a part of an exclusive group of people that do not only talk, but walk the talk, and that you are hungry for more content. So therefore, I went ahead and picked out an exclusive video just for you that I know you're going to love. Check it out right here.